We were doing all kinds of steamy.
Or do you want your seats to look like?
Oh, yes. Ooh, man. Do your seats look like this or like this? Or do you want them to be sexy like this? So we are going to put new seats in the giveaway truck. Clearly, these look horrible. So Tyson spent all morning putting the, well actually it was like an hour, it wasn't even that long, putting these seats together. So that's what we're gonna show you how to do today. So I'm gonna turn the time over to Tyson, tell you what tools we need.
Yep, okay, so brand new interior on the giveaway truck. Very simple, getting the seats out, 18 millimeter socket, 55, T55 Torx bit. That gets all of the seats out, back seat, center seat, driver and passenger with that. When you do take the seats out, do yourself a favor, raise the seats up as high as they go and as far forward as they can go as well. Makes getting them out a lot easier and taking the bottoms of the seats off so much easier. In addition to the 18 mil and the T55 Torx, you're gonna need a 13 mil, preferably deep, 10 mil deep, just to get into underneath the seats. Phillips screwdriver, hog ring pliers, needle nose pliers makes it easier to get the hog rings out when you're uninstalling the seat covers. And then obviously hog rings for installing.
You can get all of these tools when you get the seat covers. These came from leatherseats.com. They've been really great to work with. As you can tell, you can customize to any way you want. They've got multiple different patterns and about every vehicle you can think of. So as you can tell, we got our logos embroidered. We've got the stitching. They look fantastic, and we got them for all of them, and they're really, really well priced. But the nicest part is they do provide the tools. They have a bazillion videos on how to install their products, but we just wanted to show you how we're installing ours. So what do you say we get this one torn apart and
get after it?
Get after it.
So seats on the table, the first thing we're gonna do, flip it over and remove the bottom of it right here. This is a great example of what not to do. I didn't take these seats out. I should have, because I know what problems it causes. The great example is right here on this back bolt. If you don't raise the seat and push it forward, it is very hard to get to this bolt back here. 13 mil wrench on this one. You can get it out. Much easier if you don't have to crank on it, and you can just use a impact. My seats, when I did mine, are 10 millimeters, so it's either or, 13 or 10. All right, so this bottom part is gonna drop down. We just have the one electrical connector to undo. It is clipped on both sides. So there's a tab on the front and the back that you have to separate to get the plug out. Okay, so for this one, it's the brown plug. And then we have the seat belt sensor that will unplug and then slide right off, maybe. There we go. Okay, so that is the bottom frame with the motors. Once we have the motor base off, we're gonna undo all of the connections here except for this big one right here. So this one is for the heated seats on the back. This one is the bottom. Then we have the lumbar support and the seat controls. Again, this black one right here has clips or tabs on both sides, so it makes it kind of a pain. Once you get both tabs, that'll come apart. Just like that. Once we have all the electrical connections undone, the last thing we need to do is the lumbar support. If you turn the knob all the way clockwise, that allows you to get in here and push towards the top of the seat, and it'll pop right out. Then we're gonna move on to this side of the seat here. Mostly Phillips screwdrivers on this side. You're gonna take the plastic cover off on the reclining lever. And then this knob needs to come off. It is just clipped in there. So if you have a set of curved needle nose pliers, it makes it a little bit easier. Just get underneath there and pry up on it. It is plastic, so don't go too crazy with it. Just pops off. Then you're gonna have 2 screws. You'll lift up on the reclining lever, let the seat come all the way forward. I hit myself in the head the first time I did that. That'll show you this screw underneath the knob, and there should be a screw here. This one's not there. Okay. Once you got that out, those 2 screws out, there's going to be 2 more right here on the bottom. Okay, from there, the only thing holding it in is this push clip here. Again, if you have a trim panel tool, needle nose pliers, something you can just get underneath there with, you can even come behind the plastic here and just gently pry up, work it out. They are prone to breaking. If you break it, you can always go get another one. They're pretty easy to find at auto stores. From there, we're just gonna kind of bend this plastic piece up over the knob and slide it forward, okay? Then on the back, we're gonna have 2 connections that we need to undo. We've already undone this one under the seat, so we just need to remove this one here. And then that all should just pull out, just like that. Once we have this side panel that has the controls off, 13 millimeter, we're gonna take those 2 bolts out. And this is gonna allow us to separate the top and the bottom so that we can work on the bottom piece and then the top piece. Once those 2 bolts are out, this side will slide out. And on this side, you have a pin that doesn't have anything holding it in. So you just gotta kind of get the seat at an angle. It's just a matter of working it back and forth, and that'll come right out. We've already disconnected these 2 lines, so it's just a matter of pulling them through. So now that the 2 halves are separated, we're gonna set the top aside and get the bottom seat taken care of. All right, once we have the seat by itself, we're gonna start taking the cover off of it. That's really easy to do. All you gotta do is kind of push down to loosen up the leather cover here, and you're just gonna pull all of these tabs off of the frame. Just be careful, all of these edges are very sharp. You can cut yourself pretty easily on them. A lot of them are really easy. You just put some weight on them and kind of move the fabric around. They pop right off. So now we're going to flip this over and just start peeling back the leather off all the sides. Again, on the back, there's 1 clip. Just kind of gently pry that out. If you need to, needle nose pliers do wonders. All right. Okay, at this point, we're down to the hog rings. If you start on either side, you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 hog rings on each side. You can get down there with a pair of needle nose, or if you want, a pair of dikes works just as well, just to cut the hog rings in half, and then you can get them out later. If you're using needle nose pliers, just grabbing onto them and twisting will separate them pretty well, and they'll pop right out, just like that. So we're gonna go ahead and remove all 8 of these hog rings, 4 on each side, and then we're gonna start working down the middle. Now the reason I use needle nose pliers instead of dikes to cut the hog rings, I don't like fishing through the foam trying to find the other half of the hog ring that doesn't come up. So with the needle nose pliers, I can just get the whole hog ring out at once. Once we have the sides done, there's gonna be 2 sections in the middle of the seat. The front one has 3 hog rings, the back one has 2. All right, we're just gonna peel back again. Now, your cover should be free. If you are working on a truck that has heated seats, this white pad in the middle, you have to be careful with not to break any of the wires. You can see it running through here, and just make sure that there's no black spots. If there's a black spot right around one of these wires, it is broken, shorted out, you're gonna need to replace this. If you're reusing your foam base, you're gonna jump forward to where we install the new cover onto this seat. We are not going to reuse the foam. As you can see, it's chewed up here. It's all chewed up on the sides. Just taking the cover off here, foam is kind of fallen everywhere. This is really deteriorated. So we went ahead and got a new foam bottom. Before we grab the new one, we're gonna carefully, this is just glued on there. We're just gonna carefully peel this back, making sure we don't break any of the wires, so that we can reuse and reinstall this one on the new foam, since this seat warmer is just fine. Okay, so we're gonna set this aside so that we can reuse it. And then from here, this foam just picks up after you undo these clips. Just picks right up off that frame so you can replace it. All right. So we got our nice new foam here. Again, that's just gonna set right down on there. It's really easy to see. It's got all the lines, all the holes for the springs. It's fitted really well. So that really is just a drop-in replacement there. Gonna grab our clips and just poke those through. This is where, and you'll see a couple of times I'll use an awl or just a pick during this, just to poke through. And reinstall there. When we're reinstalling the seat warmer here, you have to make sure that you give enough space on the seat warmer in the cracks to flex and move around. If you take it on here and you just stick it on there tight, the first time you sit on that seat, it's gonna pull those wires apart and break. Then you're gonna have to take the seat back apart to replace your seat warmer. I like to take the front of this and with this edge here, line that up with the back of the crevice that runs right here. And then the same with this front. I like to take the front edge of this and the front edge of this right here, just so that that sits down in that groove enough right here, so that when you hog ring the new cover on and you sit in it, you're not stretching or pulling on the wires that are in there, so we don't damage that heating element. You have another small crevice here, just make sure that's not too tight, and then the wire will run out the back through this groove here. If you just go ahead and get your adhesive, peel up one corner, spray it on there and set that down. You just go through each section, get it right where you need it. Okay, you do want to let this sit for just a little bit, let the glue sit up so this doesn't shift around while we try and put the cover on. It does help to grab your new cover, flip it inside out so that we can see all these places where the hog ring goes. We can work with it really well. This part is kind of helpful to have somebody help you. Just kind of put some weight on the cushion while you're trying to install the hog rings. So you can do it by yourself. It's totally doable. It's just a little bit easier having another guy help you out here. So I'm going to have Baron hold this cover down as I start putting the hog rings in. We're going to start with the back section that crosses over the electrical wire. So he's just going to hold that down in there while I grab the hog ring pliers. It is tight down in there. I don't know how well you'll be able to see, but we just kind of press down on there and pinch them. So just the two at the very back, then we're going to move forward right here. Start in the middle and then we work our way out. I find it easier to go that way. Just because you do the sides, then you don't have as much slack to work with for the middle piece. Now, I've seen guys do these seats without hog ring pliers before, just using needle nose and trying to bend it around. The hog ring pliers are well worth the money just to pick up at the same time when you get the seats. Saves you a lot of time and energy. So again, just 4 on each side, starting in the middle, working our way out. There we go.
Okay.
Okay. Once all the hog rings are in, we're just going to stretch it around. With this step, it is helpful. You can steam the cushion and this cover just to make them a little bit more pliable, easier to get this stretched around the foam and set in the right position. We're going to flip this over, and just like when we uninstalled the stock cover, we're just going to compress one side and put these clips on. Yep.
Is that?
Yep. So on the back with the heating element, the wire that comes out, you're just going to run it to one side so that we can wrap it back around. You'll notice on this side, we're covering up the knob and the holes where all the electrical comes through. Once we have it all the hooks on and clips, we're going to go through and cut out the circles that we need to be able to put that control panel back on, the trim plate and everything. So that takes care of the bottom for right now. We're going to go to the top and then put the two together. All right, the top, really easy coming apart. It just has this one big clip on the bottom. Same type of thing, just kind of squeeze together and it comes apart. And then all along this seam and this seam, there's a Velcro strip. So as you're peeling this down, you just want to make sure, like I just did right there, that you're not ripping the Velcro off of the foam. So just go little by little, taking that Velcro off and just turning this cover inside out. Oops. And once you get past this heating element, you're gonna have your first set of hog rings that we need to take off. So we're just gonna take it to right there, lay this down, and take off this first set of hog rings. There's 3 right here. All right, once those 3 are out, we're just gonna keep rolling this down. Okay. Second set of hog rings there. 3 more. And then from there, the top should just slip right off. Again, with the heating element, you're just gonna make sure that it's not broken in any spots. This one clearly is, so we're gonna have to replace this. But it's just the same as before. If it's not broken, you're gonna replace it onto a different foam back. Just be careful peeling it up. There's not as many crevices that you have to worry about. There's no hog rings. But it should be straightforward from there, switching that over.
So what we're doing here is we are steaming the seats to make it so we're bringing the foam back to life. It'll make it so it's nice and supple again. It makes it so it comes back to life because there's no seat cover compressing it anymore. And then it'll also make it softer for us to put the new seat covers on.
And Baron's also going to do the same thing with the new seat cover as well. He's going to go sit down back there and steam the cover while we finish this up so that when we're ready, the cover is nice and soft. We can pull it right over this and get it set where we want it, and so that it looks really good as well. So you'll notice as well, we took off our old heating element. We didn't have a direct replacement to put on here. We had an aftermarket one, just a generic heating element. Nowadays in stock is the best, right? That's the only thing you can get. So that's what we had, that's what we put on there. And if you look at it, the heating element on this one, there's a lot more element here when you compare to the old stock one. You can see the old stock one just kind of does 2 loops on each side with the wire, and that's all that's there. So there should be a lot more heating capacity with this new one here. You can find them really cheap online. We were looking at a bunch of them before we found this one. They're really not that expensive, so it's worth the money since you're already in here doing seats. If you want to, you can upgrade to something like this. Even if your seats don't have heating, we found kits and options available for 70-80 bucks to add heating elements to the seats with a control module and everything that you need. So definitely look into that if since you're already here and if that's something that you want. So since we have that all in place, we glued that back down. I gave myself enough slack where the creases are just so that we don't break the wires as it expands and moves around. Got the connector all hooked up, so I think we're ready for the seat. I'm gonna have Baron come over here and we're gonna start rolling that back down. He's gonna flip it inside out, and we're gonna start just from the top down like we did when we came off, when we took the old cover off. Nice and toasty in there?
It is nice and toasty.
Yeah, I can see you sweating.
Okay.
Flip it inside out. Oh yeah, that's nice. Okay, then we're just gonna start on the head and roll it down over the shoulders. Get to that first hog ring set. Again, 3 right up here. We're gonna start in the middle. Get those put on there. And then it's worth mentioning, as we roll this on in between these 2 hog ring sets, I'm gonna run my hands along this Velcro seam right here just to kind of guide everything into place and make sure that it's sticking right where we want it and it's not shifted to one side or the other. Okay, to the second set of hog rings here. Again, 3. Okay. Gonna set this and just Now it is worth mentioning that all of these covers are directional. There is a driver's side and a passenger side on the back and on the seat bottoms. So just make sure you pay attention. The fatter side of these is on the outside. So if it's the driver's seat, it's gonna be on the driver's door, the fat part, and opposite with the passenger seat. And like I said, we're just gonna run our fingers down here, make sure that Velcro is nice and attached. And then if for some reason when you put this on here, it's shifted to one side or the other, you can just kind of massage the seat around, especially since it's nice and supple with the steaming that we did. You can really get them positioned right where you need it to make it look really good. So, and don't be too concerned about the wrinkles and it not being tight right off of the bat. With time, heat cycle, stuff like that, it'll really set up, shrink down onto the cushion and give it a really professional look. These seats are made really, really well, the covers. They match up with the factory dimensions extremely well. And if you have time before you put them back in the truck, you can set them outside for a few minutes. And that really just makes them look a lot better. I mean, we set one of the seats outside in the sun for about 15 minutes, and it made a world of difference. It made it look really, really nice just to set the leather and get it all to where we need it. So once it's all rolled down there, the factory, like I showed, has, we want to run it to this side, that clip, leather seats, makes it really easy with the zipper. Just get it all lined up there. This might be easier with a buddy too, so that Baron can pull it tight while I'm trying to make this zipper work. I've done it both ways with the clip and with the zipper, and this zipper makes it so nice. You can just tuck the excess right up in there. And then we are ready to make these two parts meet again. So we're gonna grab the bottom and we're gonna run these two wires back through the seat. I find it's easier if you run the wires on the inside of this instead of trying to wrap them on the outside. When we put it together, it'll make a little bit more sense. Okay. Lumbar support now. Just keep running them through. And then it's just a matter of lining up the hook into the hole there. So I'll kind of go at it at an angle so we can see what we're trying to accomplish here. Push it in, and then it'll just snap right in there. Wiggle it. Okay. All right. Next thing we're gonna do is set these two screws in. If you look at the factory leather, there's holes that are cut out for it. We don't necessarily need to cut the holes out for this. Oh, I'm sweating. So what we want to do is just pull the leather down to where we want it, and you can feel where that bolt hole goes. We're just going to poke a hole in it to mark it. Slide this right over there and grab the bolt and run it through. Kind of start it there. Just like that. We don't have to cut the holes. That way it's nice and tight. There's no, if you don't run the risk of cutting the hole in the wrong spot, and so it's noticeable or whatever. So that looks really good there. Gonna do the same thing with the second hole. Just find out where it's at. Line it up and poke our hole. And run her home. Okay, so now the seat is together there. We're gonna flip it over and start working on the bottom. I'm gonna make all these connections underneath here before we put the frame on the bottom, just so that we know everything's hooked up right. We're gonna take our bottom heating element, plug that in. Our top heating element, or the seat back, I guess. Make sure that's plugged in. The lumbar support. Now that all those connections are made, we're gonna come over here and put this panel on. To do that, you can see the outline of where the lumbar support knob comes through. We're just gonna take a blade and carefully cut that circle. And it doesn't have to be perfect or super tight to the knob, just because we're gonna have that big plate or panel that's gonna cover all of that up. So we need to make that hole. We need to make one more hole just forward of it, and you can see right here where those connections come through. We're just gonna pull the seat over it and make a small enough hole just to get the wires through. Like I said, it doesn't have to be very big, just big enough to get all those connections through. So we're gonna run this through. Then we're gonna have this big fat guy ran through there. We'll start putting this together. Just like we took it off, we're gonna kind of bend this plastic piece so that we can run, oh, come on. The seat recliner through there and then over the knob. We're gonna get this plugged in so we don't screw that up. Okay, so we're good there. You're gonna notice the two screws that we took out of the side here don't have holes for them. Again, we're just gonna take our awl or pick, whatever we have, find where that hole is supposed to be, and just poke right through it, just so we can get that started. I'm gonna put these 2 bolts in the front.
Tyson,
In?
I'm not hitting anything there.
Okay. Let's get this lined up first here. I guess this is a good example of getting these 2 bolts at the front in and the clip at the back first to help you line everything up before you poke these holes in. Right here at the back, we're gonna do the same thing, just poke the hole so that we can get this Christmas tree clip through there. Just like that. This is the seat controls. Just pops right back in there. And then the lumbar support. Like I said, if this is turned all the way clockwise, you can really just feel up in there. And you'll hear the audible click when it goes in. There we go, right there. Okay, just gonna toss this. There are 2 sets of kind of alignment grooves on this handle. They're directly opposite of each other. So you just kind of have to feel for where those line up. pop it on there, it'll click into place. Then we have this one last screw on this side for the back adjustment. The last thing we need to do, going back together, is to put the motors back on. So we're just gonna flip that right on there. Again, really helps all the way up, all the way forward. It's not the case this time, but oh well. Okay, now that the base is on, we're going to connect the motors, the seat belts. Once we got all those connections made, the only thing that we have is that main connection that connects it to the the truck underneath the seat, and we should be set to go there. Going back together, just the Torx and 18 mil. Clean her all up. She's good to go.
Alrighty guys, that's all it really takes to get seats in. I mean, you saw Tyson, it's a little bit of arm work, but it's not bad. I mean, it's not something you can do in your driveway on a Saturday morning. So one thing to do when the seats are all apart, you didn't see me in the background, I was cleaning up all the plastic pieces. Another thing you really should do when the seats are out, grab some white lithium grease, grease all the things that have worm joints, any place where there's gears running, and it'll make those seats move a lot better. Just clean all the gunk out of them. So there's really not a lot to this job. The front seats are some of the hardest seats to do. The back seat should be straightforward. There's more material there, but there's also more area for it to give. Another thing to mention is leatherseats.com suggested leave them in the sun for a little bit. If you can do that, it'll allow all of these little wrinkles and stuff to work their way out. It allows everything to kind of contract and expand and just fit a lot better. So
this seat has sat out in the sun, and you can see just on the bottom how much tighter and better looking it is than this one that we just finished a few minutes ago. Sun makes a big difference there.
So again, go check out leatherseats.com. They got these seat covers to us. They look fantastic. They fit great. They're really comfortable. The leathers are really good quality. So,
and just the fact that we could send them our logo and say, hey, we want this in the back of them, and they're like, yep, no problem. We'll get it done. And they look great.
What do you say we get these things installed? I want to see how they look.